You have been here before talking about a piece of legislation in the state of New York known as the New York State Beauty Justice Act previously. And it appears there are some updates here. And I'm a little concerned about the updates. So I'm really grateful that we will then be able to turn to Janet to see what is happening in New York State might be helpful for other states to either follow or perhaps to avoid. So, Natasha, if you could first start out by reminding us as to what the nature of the New York State Beauty Justice Act is, and talk to us about the campaign for safer cosmetics.
Yes. Well, Janet's going to talk about that, but the New York Beauty Justice Act is a bill that was proposed in New York State that would ban the most harmful chemicals in beauty products, right? And it passed in one house. It sadly did not pass this year, so we will have to go back at it again next year.
Hmm.
It was a valiant effort, I must say. We came on board in terms of being a part of the coalition of organizations, beauty justice organizations, who are fighting for this. So it was a lot of advocacy work. As you know, we've been on the show talking about the advocacy work that we're doing with natural hair licensing. But this we felt was really akin to what we were talking about, because a lot of salon workers, a lot of folks who are doing the hair are using these products on clients and are oftentimes referring products to their clients, right? So we felt that we needed to be a part, we needed to bring our advocacy efforts together and pass this bill. However, as you know, advocacy is a lot of work. It's a
Yep.
lot of talking to legislators. It's a lot of educating legislators on why this is important. It's a lot of educating the public too, to support and asking them to get in touch with their legislators and letting them know that this is something that is important to them. This is something that is important to their families, and this is something that needs to be passed. Again, unfortunately, it did not get passed this year, but we are not going to stop. This work has been going on for a long time. And, being a part of the NHBC and being a part of this coalition, because we are a coalition of natural hair stylists, but now we have partnered with a even bigger coalition who again have been doing this work for years and years. So we're even learning as much as we have done in the small time that we've been together. We realize that there are even more organizations that are out there, and Breast Cancer Prevention Partners is just one of the organizations that are part of this, that is doing the work, and they've been doing it for a long time, and we are really grateful to be in their presence. And we're learning so much about how to really get the message out there with campaigns and calling legislators and lobby days. They've had a lot of lobby days going on. The New York Beauty Justice Act, again, did not pass, sadly, but again, we're not going to stop. We're going to push it forward.
And this is a really powerful example as to what advocacy looks like at the state level. And Natasha, I appreciate your honesty, because again, there are some pieces of legislation and advocacy that I engage in that succeeds maybe the first time out, and sometimes it requires a couple of years of effort. There are others that just don't go anywhere, and you have to figure out what the next steps are. But the point is that you are in the fight. And that's one of the things that has so impressed me about you and your coalition, because you didn't just learn about advocacy for yourselves, you are now employing those skills in ways that are going to help other people. But Janet, I'd love to pull your voice in here, because you see the sorts of work that they're doing at the state level in New York. And to me, it feels like a no-brainer. Why would we not want safer cosmetics to put on? These are things that we're literally putting on our body, the largest organ that we have. And we now have a lot of science that lets us know that what you put on your body really matters, in addition to what you put in your body. Can you talk to us a little bit about what the Breast Cancer Prevention Partners work looks like as it pertains to its campaign for safer cosmetics, and sort of tease out some of the challenges that we face when we live in a world where these sorts of products are not being regulated appropriately?
Yes, thank you so much. That is such an important question. And there are so many different ways I could answer it. But let me just start with BCPP, who we are, what we do, and why we do it. We are a 30+ year organization, the only national organization focused solely on preventing breast cancer by identifying and eliminating the environmental links to the disease. And when I say environmental, I mean chemicals. Chemicals that are linked to breast cancer in our beauty and personal care and other consumer products, chemicals linked to breast cancer in our workplaces, and chemicals linked to breast cancer in our communities through our air, water, and land pollution. And so we're all about getting those chemicals better regulated and better disclosed, both at the state and the federal level. And that's why what Natasha was just describing is so important. We do our work in two different ways. We create legislative models in California. We're a national organization, but we're based in California, and we get laws passed here that serve as a model for other states and then create the momentum for federal reform. And we've been successful in getting 16 bills to the governor's desk here in California. Just last year, I led a campaign to ban DEHP, which is a very harmful phthalate, from IV bags and tubing. And it's interesting because that same phthalate, which is a part of a family of chemicals, was banned from children's toys in California at the federal level, but it's present in IVs that pump medicine into the bloodstream of babies, young children, women. No, it's mind-boggling.
My brain is breaking. I wait a minute, pause, Janet. Hold on. Let's slow this train down because you broke something in my thought process. You mean to tell me that there was a recognition that this phthalate, am I saying that correctly?
Well,
this
phthalate.
This phthalate
Yeah.
was chemical in toys that babies play with.
Yeah, and chew on
and put in their mouths, but not so dangerous that it should be also excluded from the medicinal bags that are pumping medicines into their veins.
Yes. No, it's so bad. It's even worse than that because what the science shows us, and this is why we got it banned in California, is that DHP, it's not a stable molecule, so it leaches from the IV tubing into the medicine being transfused into patients. And in the case of breast cancer patients, it creates drug resistance. So it stops the chemotherapy from killing breast cancer cells. So and this isn't even the story I wanted to tell you.
I am horrified. I don't even know what to do with this information. I am horrified. Yes. Wait, but if we've got science, isn't science supposed to be determinative? How do we have the science? How do we have certain levels of bans, but they would be a ban on a specific application of the phthalate as opposed to a universal ban from its use in other ways that could cause this harm?
So that is the exactly right question because phthalates, and there's about a dozen orthophthalates that we ban from IV bags and tubing, but they're also, these same phthalates are present in beauty and personal care products. They make the nail polish that we apply hard and chip resistant. They spread the fragrance in fragranced beauty and personal care products, which make up about 95% of the beauty and personal care products we buy. They smell good because they contain these secret fragrance chemicals that by law do not have to be disclosed to consumers. So they're present in our beauty and personal care products, but they're banned from kids' toys and rubber duckies. And then they're banned again in California from IV bags and tubing. But this is endemic. This is illustrative of the larger problem we deal with because chemicals are so poorly regulated in the US. And that's why Natasha was describing in New York, the advocates got together to try to pass what I consider the gold standard of cosmetic safety, really the best bill that's currently moving through state legislatures. You know, they got knocked down because of I believe, because we were engaged as well, opposition from the industry's trade association, the Personal Care Products Council, you know, and other opponents who wanted to preserve the business as usual approach to cosmetic safety, which is quite simply a wild west for consumers, a buyer beware situation for consumers. And that's why, getting to answer your question in a circuitous way, we created our campaign for safe cosmetics 21 years ago at BCPP. It's a market-based campaign that was launched to secure stricter regulation of the $100 billion cosmetics industry because companies can and still do 21 years later use chemicals linked to birth defects, reproductive harm, asthma, learning disabilities, and fertility in the beauty and personal care products we use every day legally, and without FDA oversight or regulation.
I am horrified. I am horrified. I just spent an exorbitant amount of money purchasing products for my daughter's hair that I knew were clean products. We're going to be adding extensions to her hair because she finally convinced me to do it. So we're adding extensions to her hair. But I went out and I sought out the products that I knew. Natasha, the folks that you all had introduced us to, Rebundle. We bought the Rebundle packages, so we're not going to have anything. But my daughter thought I was being really extreme. And admittedly, I can be a little extreme. I mean, I've got it in me. I'm a Cancer. So, we can do that sometimes when it comes to keeping the family safe. But I explained to her, I actually let her listen to the conversation that we had, Natasha, about the chemicals that were in that hair product. And so she gets it. She's 11. She's rational. She's a Virgo, so she gets it. But it felt like to me, like I was really proud of myself, right? Because I was like, all right, we're going to do it. We're going to buy these products. They're clean. I'm not going to put these chemicals in my baby's head. But Janet, everything you just said, I mean, when you said nail polish, I just took my nail polish off and I looked down at my nails because I was like, oh my God, what am I putting on? I think about the things that we buy. And for me, some of the biggest chemical concerns that I had when it came to beauty products was using things like hair straighteners, which is why almost 30 years ago, I took out my perm. I shouldn't have said how long it is because now I realize how old I am. But I took that out and I no longer use it. I remember using the Jerry curl when I was a younger person. I remember thinking about, should I put shea butter in my daughter's head or in my son? What I was doing, I started using coconut oil because I didn't really want to use a lot of the grease because I didn't really know what those products were. But I thought that the big issues were like perms. And I'm going to say something now, Janet. You are not necessarily part of the same demographic racially that Natasha and I are from visual appearance. You can never really tell, but from visual appearance. Mm-hmm. But in my household, my husband and I had a conversation about this once, and some friends of ours were like, well, white people ain't going to let themselves get poisoned. They're going to take care of themselves. So if we use what white people are using, it's going to be fine. Janet, it does not appear that white people are safe from this either. This feels like something that is this uniquely American? Is this a part of something that everyone, because when I grew up in Germany, I know we had different products and different chemicals in the food that we had there as compared to what we were eating here. Is this an American thing that we're willing to poison ourselves so vigorously for money, or is this really a function of the West generally?
Yeah, so it's a problem that impacts everyone, but it impacts women of color more and Black women in particular. And it impacts women globally, but in the US, we're definitely lagging behind. And so just a couple of examples. In the EU, since we started doing this work, since we launched the Campaign for Safe Cosmetics 21 years ago, 20 years ago, the EU introduced a cosmetic regulation that banned 1,300 chemicals from beauty and personal care products. Now, 20 years later, that number has increased to 2,400. In the same time span, the EU, here in the US, 20 years ago, the FDA had banned 11 chemicals from cosmetics, and now today they have banned an additional 4. For a total of 15 chemicals banned from beauty and personal care products compared to the EU. So that gives you an idea of the juxtaposition in terms of cosmetic safety. But I want to return to your question about who's really most at risk, and it truly is Black women, and it is just heartbreaking because Black women use more beauty products. They purchase about $7.5 billion worth of beauty products a year, 9 times more hair care products. And the science shows that the products that they buy that are marketed to them are more toxic. And it's partially because of the types of products that Black women use, hair relaxers, hair straighteners, skin lighteners, etc. But it's more complicated than that because there was an NIEHS sister study that showed that white women compared to Black women who regularly dye their hair experience a lower risk of breast cancer. For Black women, the risk of breast cancer is 60% for Black women who regularly dye their hair. And that's compared to 8% for white women who regularly dye their hair. So there's something off, right, between the types of products marketed to Black women versus white women. Black women get breast cancer less, but they die from it more. They experience a double the risk of uterine cancer when they regularly straighten their hair. So it is a very, very serious situation for Black women when it comes to Black beauty. And it just breaks my heart because no one should risk, no one should face an increased risk of not just breast cancer, not just uterine cancer, but uterine fibroids, polycystic ovarian syndrome, infertility, increased risk of maternal complications. For Black girls, higher rates of early puberty. I mean, the list goes on and on. And we're just talking about beauty and personal care, not other unsafe exposures that come from where Black women live, where they work, other products they buy. So it is a truly a travesty and a seriously dangerous situation for Black women and when it comes to Black beauty.